Well, a booyah welcome to episode 17 here of the What Do We Do podcast. Kyle Bogey, Dewey Stefan. I stole your little catchphrase there, Dewey. How do you feel about
Bogey,
that?
I appreciate that. And we also have to recognize Mike Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully. He jumped out of his chair there in the control room when you said it. He's running our mixer board, as always. Sully, great to see you. Bogey, great to see you. And a great big booyah to ya.
There's no doubt about that. A lot to get to here on episode 17. Going to be more of a one, focus, I suppose, here on this episode, and that's going to be on retirement planning, what it all means, certainly making sure that you're taking care of yourself. But, the way that you're going to describe it and kind of get into it a little bit, Dewey, is as you get to different ages and as you continue to get older, how much you are saving for retirement, what you need to be saving for retirement is, of course, going to change over that period of time.
Absolutely. We all want to have a goal of retiring, but we want to retire.
That'd be nice,
right?
yeah.
We want to retire. We want to retire well. Follow me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I've got a great quote to start the show today. Bogey, you ready for this?
Perfect. Let's do it.
Retirement. It's nice to get out of the rat race, but you have to learn to get along with less cheese.
Where do you find these?
This guy, Gene Perrette, has this quote I found on the internet. And again, that's a great quote, but maybe you want to retire with more cheese. You follow me?
Uh-huh.
So really, it is important that you retire and you retire well. So this episode is going to be all about whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, or 60s, getting on the right track to a great retirement.
Before we dive in here, in all seriousness, I know you're a busy guy. I know you're taking care of your clients and making sure that money is coming in and you're continuing to grow portfolios. But do you just in your downtime search out quotes, search out catchphrases, ththings like that? Where does all this come
Well,
from?
I think maybe a little bit.
I love it.
Truth be told, we want to have a little bit of, a little charm and a little pizzazz for the show, right? But as you know, at Great Lakes Wealth, we do believe in cliches. And whether it's MGD, which is make good decisions, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, etc. So, yes, we're always going to have a little bit of fun with it. As we always say, we're just getting started. But if you can't listen from someone else's quote or their story, then you're missing out on really a real good opportunity to have a little fun, but also learn a little bit as well.
I got to believe there's people out there who say, you know what, that's my favorite part of the What Do We Do podcast, all your quotes and anecdotes and little catchphrases. So we appreciate that.
And Bogey, as we said before, we'll say it for Sully this time. Sully, you're worth your weight in gold, my friend. Okay, back to episode about gold. There you go.
Well, you might not find those quotes or those catchphrases or those trigger words at greatlakeswealth.us, but you will find a ton of information on investing, on just trying to educate yourself essentially on what you need to be doing, the steps you need to be taking, and really what Dewey and his wonderful team here at Great Lakes Wealth does. So again, if you want to find some more information, on top of the What Do We Do podcast, please check out greatlakeswealth.us for yourself. So this entire episode is going to be all about, like we said, retirement. We all want to be retiring, maybe even a little bit early, and you want to be sitting on the beach drinking pina coladas. Maybe you're playing golf 3, 4, 5 days a week potentially, right? So to get to that point, or to get to whatever is going to make you happy in retirement at whatever age, there are steps that need to be taken in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, and then, of course, in your 60s as you potentially get to that point when you're ready to retire. So I guess, for starters, what is one of the most important things that you can emphasize when people start to plan their retirement, start to think about, retiring and how much they need to start putting away and how to do it?
So we have 11 steps to investing successfully, not necessarily for retirement, but just in general. But that very first one, I think, answers your question, and that is start now. Start now, and that is your best chance to have that retirement that you want. In addition to that, you want some simple questions answered. And I will refer our listeners to our website. We have calculators, and I don't know if there's 7, 8, 9, 10 of them that are specific towards retirement, but there's another 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10 of them about investing in general, as well as other subtopics. So if you want to do some calculations for yourself, the easiest way is to go to our website, greatlakeswealth.us, and it'll be there for you. Scroll to the bottom of our homepage or go into resources and you'll find them, or talk to your professional advisor, your financial planner, and he or she can absolutely help you as well, right? But along those lines, you want to find out when you're going to retire, what's your optimal retirement age. You should have one that's sooner. If by the grace of God you have some things go your way, and as we say in the golf game, the wind's at your back, right? And the other one is, again, you want to have one that may have to delay it a few years because of whatever happens. If it was in the year 2000 that you were planning on it, or in the year 2007 or 8 you were planning on it, or even the beginning of 2020. So you want to, again, have a few different dates out there, just kind of the what ifs, and the longer you have until then, that actually will be that much more beneficial to you, right? But then it's also, how long are you going to live? Your longevity. And I'll give you a few stats, a little bit later on in the podcast about, how long people are living now, how long they're living if they're single, if they're married, and how long your retirement may need to last you.
Yeah, you don't want to run out of money.
You don't want to run out of money.
That wouldn't be good.
You got that right. Tennessee Williams, another quote on the fly because of that. How about, Tennessee Williams?
I don't.
Tennessee Williams, a country star,
okay.
country singer back in the day. He has a quote that I kind of changed the words up a little bit. So my version is, you can be young without money, but you don't want to be old without it.
Can you say, is that a part of a song?
I don't know, but
can you sing it?
You can be young without money, but you don't want to be old without it.
No doubt.
He said you can't be old without it. So you can, but probably not the way you want to be. So besides how long is your retirement going to need to last, how much is it expected to cost to live your life? Right? Some people, when they retire, want to travel the world. They want to enjoy all that life potentially has to offer. Others really like to, have a more simple, secluded lifestyle. And so there's costs that are associated with both of those and all of them in between. You are going to want to go play the top 100 golf courses around the world in your private plane. Right now it might be a G5. Down the road it'll be a G20, whatever it is. And we're not talking about the G20 summit. Anyhow, right? So the different costs associated with doing different things. So you need to know what your retirement is going to cost. And then you need to know what sources of income you'll have. Is it just Social Security? I sure hope not. Is it Social Security plus employer retirement plan? I still sure hope not. As Sully always says, he is looking forward to having 7 minimum streams of income, because that's what the average millionaire has, right? So along those lines, you need to know how many sources that you'll have income, and are those guaranteed or can they fluctuate, right? And then one final one is, what strategies do you have in place, whether they're growth or income or a combination therein, to start the process as well.
So let's say, the, quote unquote, American dream, or the, scenario plays out where, say, you go to college, you graduate, you get that first job, and you have an employee match, potentially, where you're going to save, a little bit for retirement. They're going to match a percentage, and you're going to start saving a little bit at that point. Is that enough if you're 23 years old, or are there other things, a financial advisor perhaps, other investments, things that you need to be looking at early on, I guess, before we get to those next, layers and those next levels of retirement?
So, great question. And I think, why don't we use an example of you and Sully? This is going to be the Bogey Sully show today.
Perfect.
Okay? And I'm going to be your financial advisor. Okay. And so the first thing we're going to tell you is that income, whether you're in your 20s or older, but income does not equal wealth, right? So we're talking about retirement planning. We also want to know wealth management and understanding where you are in the wealth spectrum. You follow me?
Yeah.
Okay. But income, everyone loves to talk about how much income they have. I'm making $100,000 a year.
I brought in this last year.
Right?
Yeah, sure.
I did this.
Yeah.
I've got this, right? So we're going to use that as an example, okay? Sully, we're going to assume that you make $150,000 a year right now. You're living large, okay? Young man, we heard, just turned 27 not too long ago.
Mayor of Royal Oak.
Oak. Just, left his secure career. 97 won the ticket to venture off. Go west, young man. Are you crazy? What are you thinking? And I'm kidding. Obviously, you are knocking it out of the park. Fantastic. So much so that you're making $150,000 a year, okay? But you're spending the whole thing. You're having a good time. You got a beautiful car. You belong to a country club. You eat well. You travel, even in COVID-19 somehow. So all of that, you're not saving any money, but you make a lot of money, but you don't have any savings. Follow me so far, Bogey?
Mm-hmm, sure.
Okay, you, more practical, pragmatic. You've been with me for this now the 17th episode. You're learning a few things along the way. Your ship is coming in also. You're making $100,000 a year. Okay, you're not making quite what your partner is, but at the same time, you're living below your means. Okay, you're only spending $90,000 out of your $100,000. Okay. And so you're saving $10,000 a year. Let's call it around $900 a month. But $10,000 a year on the surface, $100,000. Your friend's making $150,000. Everyone's going to look at him and he's going to say, "Hey, I'm more successful. I'm making more income.
Living the dream.
Buying
Buying everything. Yeah, multiple cars.
Let's compare W-2s. Have you heard anyone do this before?
I'm sure
it's
it happens
ridiculous,
a lot.
right? It's ridiculous. But if you can save just, again, 10% in your situation, okay, $10,000 a year with zero compounding, with zero growth, with
just
zero.
taking it and stashing it.
Stashing it, right?
Okay.
$10,000 a year, 10 years, how much is that?
$100,000.
$100,000, right? And you're 30. Do that for 30 years.
$300,000 ready to go.
And you're going to get some pay raises. You're going to have compounded interest. You're going to all of a sudden surpass Sully and his lifestyle in no time at all. Okay. But Sully's listening to this, so he's actually going to start saving $15,000.
I was going to say we need to get Sully in touch with you. You need to have a conversation.
We're going to work on that. That's right. Reduce your spending. Anyway, all that to say is that income does not equal wealth. Okay, so that's just kind of where we start. We've got to make sure you're living within your, means. Period. End of story to start. Fair?
Absolutely.
Okay. So now once we do that, we believe that there's certain strategies focused for 20-year-olds, focused for 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, and 50-year-olds, and 60-year-olds. The general ideas are the same, but specifically to each of those age demographics, there are kind of some specifics. And so we'll go through them, relatively fast with some bullet points. And then if we want to hit on something coming back, we can do that. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. Well, before we do that, Fidelity has a rule of thumb, and this will be a good segue into it. Fidelity, from their website, has a rule of thumb that says you should aim to save 1 times your salary by the time you're 30. Okay, in any vehicle you want, 401k, Roth IRA, cash in the bank. Hopefully you got some investments out there doing some things. So if you're 30, which again, happy birthday, we know you just turned 30. 31.
Yeah.
Okay,
so much older. Yeah.
Right. So if you're 30, 31, and Sully's 30, 31, whatever, each of you should have saved 1 times that hypothetical amount that we discussed a few minutes ago. Fair?
Sure.
Okay. And again, we hope that when you're 25, you have a job, have a career, and then you make, an inflation amount adjusted for a raise, cost of living increase, whatever it's called. Fair? So anyway, 1 times by the time you're 30, you should have saved, according to Fidelity. 3 times by the time you're 40. Okay? 6 times by the time you're 50. And 8 times your salary by the time you're 60 years old. Okay? So if you're 58 years old out there and you are making X, you need to times that by 8 and see if you are on track to just have the quote-unquote normal, sustainable retirement based upon someone your age. Does that make sense?
You're 58, you're bringing in, say, $100K a year. You would tell that person you need to have $800,000 ready to go or saved in some way, shape, or form. Invested, whatever it may be.
That's exactly right,
Okay.
and that's what Fidelity says for sure, right? And makes some sense.
100%.
A lot of people have asked me in the past, and we talked about it in a prior episode, what's that magic number, Dewey? What's that magic number for retirement? Is it $1 million? I heard it's now $2 million. What's the magic number? And again, we say that depends on all those factors we just discussed. So another simple way, if you want, is to go ahead and just do this multiplier. And here's the scary one, Bogey. 10 times your income by age 67. So if you're 65 out there getting ready to retire, looking at your Social Security, according to Fidelity, 10 times, there's that magic number on 100,000. 10 times 100,000 is $1 million.
$1 million.
Bing, 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 ding, 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 ring that bell. Hi, this is Dewey Steffen, CEO of Great Lakes Wealth. At Great Lakes Wealth, we believe that now, more than ever, it's so important to support our local economy. As a local business ourselves, we are dedicated to helping other small businesses not just survive, but thrive. There are several ways that we can all support our community. Order takeout or curbside delivery. Buy a gift card and use it later. Tip service workers extra. Add local goods to your grocery list. Visit online stores and shop. Today, more than ever, local businesses need our help. They are the heartbeat of our community. Let's all do what we can, as many hands make for light work. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the show. Right? So that's the start. Fair enough?
Absolutely.
Okay. So we're going to go right into the 20-year-olds. So all you 20-year-olds out there, let's go fast with some retirement planning tips for you. 1, start saving ASAP. Okay, start now. Number 2, build 3 to 6 month emergency accounts. We talked about that because of the spring with COVID-19.
Rainy day fund. Oh, yeah.
Rainy day, you've got it. Number 3, sign up for your company's 401k. And especially to the amount that the max, that if there is a match.
Take advantage.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Take advantage of the match if it's there. Number 4, invest in a Roth IRA if you still qualify. Number 5, be aggressive with your investments. Number 6, avoid debt and try, as we said a little bit earlier, to live within your means. We know you may have, school debt, college debt, whatever that is. But besides that, once you're in your 20s, live within your means and don't pile on the debt. And that's probably the biggest thing that I saw when I was in my 20s from my peer group, and that I still see today when I'm talking to folks in their 20s or other investors out there. Next is learn investment basics. Get educated. When you're in your 20s, and we've talked about this several times with
Absolutely.
the COVID-19 and staying home and, learning how
Use it
investment
to your
goes.
advantage. Yeah.
Use it, right? Don't just get a hot stock tip, buy something and figure it out. Again, great plug for our website, greatlakeswealth.us. We have presentations on investing. There are calculators for compound investing, et cetera. So when you're in your 20s, we always say do your homework. So there you go. If you're in your 20s, do your homework. What do you got about that?
I mean, it sounds about right. And honestly, I think that needs to be impressed upon, people even more so, because you get in your 20s and, say you're making, 40 or 50 grand right out of college or something. That's going to feel like a ton of money, to someone of that age, 23, 24, 25. It's not. It's not. That is not big time money. When you're that age and you feel it a little bit and you're getting a paycheck every 2 weeks, sure, I guess it'll feel that way. But over the long term, you need to be making so much more than that in saving as much of that as you possibly can.
Another great quote right here for you, Bogey.
Hot off the press.
Found this on the internet. This guy, Phil Osafis, if I've mispronounced your last name, I apologize. If you live fake rich now, you'll retire real broke later, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was in my 20s, and retirement seemed a long way off, and here I am. I'm halfway there now. Knock on wood, hopefully even a little bit closer than that if I choose to, right? So that being the case, you have to be responsible and start now. How about we go to the 30-year-olds?
Yeah, because they say your 30s, and even some people say your 40s are your money-making years, which that would mean those are your money-saving years, I would assume as well. So, yeah, in your 30s, I guess, what are the most important things you need to remember?
So we'll leapfrog and take part of it from the 20-year-old category, right? But number 1, max out your 401k. So now max it out. Before it was just be in it, maybe up to the match, et cetera. But now max out your 401k. Number 2.
What can you do? How can you max out your 401k any given year?
You either can put 100% of your salary in.
Okay.
So depending on the year that you are looking at, whatever the max is for the 401k program, you can put up 100% of your salary in. You wouldn't have anything to live off of unless you have other investments, maybe your spouse, significant other.
Those 7 streams of income that we talk about.
Of income. Absolutely right. You got it for sure. But you also can go and see what the max is, what your salary is.
Sure.
And we here at Great Lakes Wealth, we have clients that get a bonus, let's say, they get a bonus in the first quarter every year. They sometimes max out their 401k with that bonus. Other ones say, no, I'm going to wait and use that bonus to make sure my debt is under control, and I'll use that to do my taxes in April, etc. And then we will make sure our 401k. But either way, you need to find a way to max out your 401k for sure. Okay. And then if you can still do a Roth, continue to do it, right? The Roth IRA, there are maximum income thresholds. So I hate to say
5,500, 6,000, something like that.
Well, it's 6,500 and going up every year. But more important than the number amount that you can put in, it actually is above a certain dollar amount of your income. Going back to the income, if you're in the high income category, single is one number, married filing jointly is another one. At some point, you phase out of being able to do a Roth based upon how much money you make with your adjusted gross income.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So we always say inside of 401k, and we talked about this in a prior episode, if you are, the wealthiest person on the planet and you have a 401k plan and you're contributing to it, you can actually put that in the Roth inside the 401k. Anyone can do a Roth inside their 401k or 403b if you work at a nonprofit. But if it's just a side investing, another source for income later, if it's just a Roth IRA with that lower
standalone
amount,
almost.
Standalone. Yeah. Then again, if you are the richest person in the world, you have phased out, long ago. So needless to say, if you can continue to do a Roth because you haven't quite hit the threshold of your annual income, do it as best you can. And then you should actually, in your 30s, have a target of having a non-retirement strategy. So start putting a couple bucks into, an individual investment account, maybe a joint account with your wife, husband, or significant other. And so 401k should be maxed out. You should be doing the Roth if you can. And then on top of that, put a couple bucks aside into a regular, what we call a retail investor account. Fair enough?
Absolutely.
Okay. Then stay aggressive. That money should be going in and not coming out. So stay aggressive. Fair enough?
Stay aggressive in the sense of
your investing profile, right? The money, as it grows, you definitely want to talk to a professional and understand, if it's a certain dollar amount, you need to rebalance and do other things. But in, again, the general sense, you're still young with 30 years to go. Even if you're 39, you have, 20 to 30 years to go. So stay aggressive with retirement funds. Fair?
Yeah.
Okay. Also in here, maybe you should start looking at buying a home. Maybe you already have by the time you're in your 30s, great. But if not, and that's something that you're going to consider, then absolutely that is part of your retirement package as well as an asset. Fair?
Absolutely.
Okay. This one might catch you off guard, but buy some disability life insurance. Disability insurance in case something happens where you can't work. You need insurance that will pay your disability income. It could be 70% of your income, up to 100% of your income. Most companies have that as an option through your employer, a group plan. If not, you need to consider to get some disability insurance. Otherwise, you're not going to keep up with your bills. Fair enough?
Yeah.
Okay. If you have a family, this is an important one too. Start college planning for the youngster. Start it. That'll come as well as a liability to you later if you're going to help them. But if everything's on its track, start it in your 30s. And then last but not least in your 30s is to avoid bad debt. So now in the 20s, it was avoid debt altogether. In your 30s, again, it's more bad debt. Buying a house would be considered good debt most of the time. If there's something else with a company that you might be involved with and taking on debt, can be good if done responsibly. But you'd have assets now that could, solidify that experience. Fair enough?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're going to go to the 40s.
I'm not that far
We're
off.
going. This is how life
9
goes.
years.
Life goes fast. Keep up.
Terrifying.
Okay, in your 40s. Now we are continuing to max out our 401k. we hopefully can't do the Roth anymore. Understand?
If you're making enough money, then
Hopefully, you're making.
you're at the threshold. You're done. Okay.
You can't do the Roth anymore. That bucket's put aside, and we continue on. You need to continue outside investing because now you need to ramp that up, whatever the Roth money would have been, et cetera, et cetera. And now you're actually building other streams of income, a la Mike Sullivan. Fair enough. Now you hopefully, after 20 years of doing this, have, some would consider a substantial pile or pool of investments. Mm-hmm. So now you want to start rebalancing and having a more diversified approach. We said in your 20s and 30s, just be aggressive. Just be aggressive and keep going. Dollar cost average.
Attack.
Boom, 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 right? Now in your 40s, you're halfway there. To 60 is only 20 years. 45 to 65, only 20 years. So now have a diversified approach and stay responsible. Stay responsible. One day at a time, but pay attention.
Okay.
40s. Common sense. Simple. Not so much. It is, but again, it's a labor of love and you got to do it. Okay, 50-year-olds. You ready for this?
Uh-huh.
Okay, 50-year-olds. First step here, find a professional to review and make sure that you are on your retirement track. Make sense?
Of course.
Okay.
You're close at that point.
You're getting there. And so you can also consider your financial planner, your advisor as your personal or family CFO, Chief Financial Officer. Mm-hmm. So a lot of professionals in the business, they'll actually use that as their calling card and say, hey, I'm the CFO of the families I work with, et cetera. And there's a lot of truth in that. So find someone who can help you make sure you can get to the finish line. And now we're start talking about taxes and tax efficient investing, et cetera, et cetera.
So say you get into your 50s, okay, and you sit down with an advisor, the CFO of, whoever's handling, your investments and essentially doing an audit of what you've been able to save, what your investments are, right? And that financial, planner, whatever you want to call them, comes back and says, well, you're really not on track here. In your 50s, you don't want to be aggressive, but if you're not on track, you also apparently have to make up for a little bit of what you didn't do before. At that point, how do you go about doing that and making up that money in what you need to save in the next 15 years, say?
Well, it's common sense. You either need to increase your income, whether that's go ask your boss for a raise or get a second job. You need to just find a way to increase your income. Mm-hmm. You need to reduce your expenses is the other way you can do it, right?
And put a higher percentage away.
Right? The income stays the same, then the expenses need to go down, right?
Yeah.
Or it's a combination of both. Or, again, if you have to, the other option is to invest more aggressively to hopefully get there, right? But that is the most dangerous.
Comes with risk, yeah.
That's the most dangerous. So as, the cliche in the markets is it's not timing the market, it's time in the market. And as you know, we think there are periods where you can try to attempt to time it or take advantage of the depressions and the overzealous, peaks of the market, if you will, within the dollar cost averaging strategy. But yeah, if you're in your 50s and 60s and you're not where you want to be, again, start now and talk to a professional so you can make sure that you have every opportunity for success that you can.
And then I guess the last part of this would be once you get into, say, your 60s and you are a year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever it may be away from, hey, I'm calling game here. I'm ready to be done. I'm ready to go to the deck chair. I'm ready to travel the world, whatever it may be. At that point, when you're within 5 years, what's the plan there?
Well, it's still the same. You are maybe reducing risk. Maybe your allocation is changing, but you, again, need to max out all of your potential strategies, 401k, et cetera, right? So we do talk about in your 50s, another reason you want to talk to a professional is because there are many strategies out there that you may not know, researching it yourself online or just kind of going with what your next door neighbor had to say. So there are very specific strategies to reduce tax implications. Also, many strategies out there to guarantee income opportunities. So you want to talk to a professional, find out what some of those tricks are within the last 5 to 10 years so you can take full advantage, right? And along that same line, you do need to define your goals extremely specifically when you are within 5 years. Mostly on the debt side, if that smart debt is there, that would be paying off your mortgage. Even with historically low rates now, we believe in almost every circumstance, when you retire, you should be debt free. So you should have your mortgage paid off. You certainly should have other, credit card debt and other things should absolutely not even be a point of conversation, but you should be debt free at retirement, unless you have a very specific strategy that makes some sense with that. And above all else, so whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, or 60s, or 70s, or 80s, or 90s, or ring that bell, ding, 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 at the Centurion Club of 100, you want to be prepared for the unexpected always. Does that make some sense?
Like 2020.
2020, right?
Be
Sully's shaking
prepared
his
for
head.
weird stuff like this.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a couple quick stats to wrap up, and then we can kind of see if
Great.
there's any more questions from you and go from there. Is that fair?
Sure.
Okay. So, according to the U.S. Census Bureau in 2016, okay, out of 100% of 65-year-olds that were out there in 2016, 100% of 65-year-olds,
Okay.
1% considered themselves wealthy, or I should say was considered wealthy by the U.S. Census Bureau. 1% was considered wealthy.
What does that mean?
We'll have to look that up. But again, whatever they considered a wealthy and carefree
Sure.
retirement. 4% were considered to be have adequate capital for retirement. 4% were considered to have adequate capital for retirement. Okay, so we're only at 5% out of the whole 65-year-old base have either considerable wealth or adequate capital for retirement.
I got to be honest, that's a little alarming that only
Scary,
5%
right?
is really good to go there. Okay, keep
Scary.
going.
3% still working.
Okay.
3% still working.
At 65.
At 65. Okay, 63% are dependent upon Social Security, friends, relatives, or charity. Is that crazy?
How is that possible?
63%, and then the final category of 29%, they've deceased by the time they're 65.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So very alarming numbers that, again,
63%.
63% dependent on Social Security. Again, they're not, on the
Sure.
street. They're not living at their parents, but they are
You're
not having the
restricted.
retirement.
You
You're
can't
extremely
do what
restricted.
you really want in retirement.
Right.
Yeah.
So have a goal. Number one goal should be whatever your income is, that should be 2 times your monthly expenses. From our perspective here at Great Lakes Wealth, just another something to have on the brain. 2 times your expenses should be your main income. And then, as Sully says, to have multiple streams of income. After you've done that, then you should find a second, third, or fourth stream of income that can cover your monthly expenses. And so your main income is that one that you can put away and invest in, that sort of thing. Does that make some sense too?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. And then I'm going to go real fast with some numbers, okay? This is a savings calculator, and you can use this on our website, okay? If you start with $1,000, you start with $1,000 and you put $1,000 a month in, okay? You will have, when you are 30 years later, you will have $197,000 30 years later. So whether you're 20 to 50 or 30 to 60, you start with $1,000. You put in $1,000 a month, $12,000 a year. And you know what? I'm not going to read any of these because the numbers were all wrong from my second one. So we're going to skip that. Okay?
So we'll just edit that part out. Okay.
Yeah, you're going to edit that part out. Fair enough?
Okay, so Dewey, is there anything else, I guess, to wrap this entire discussion up that you would want to make sure that you're emphasizing, and if people are listening and trying to find out more information about what they should be doing, that you want to make sure they hear?
Yeah, the closer you get to retirement, certainly the more it matters. The main items to consider would be, again, the timing of your retirement. If it's 2000 and 2008 versus 2009 versus, right now. So timing matters. Number 2 is healthcare and Social Security benefits certainly matter for those retirees. Inflation and spending is also going to matter. And then the strategies that you're living on or that you have your investments in is absolutely going to make the difference. So those are some very important pieces of the puzzle that you always need to consider. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
All right, so I'm going to leave you with this, Kyle. According to Wikipedia, what is a millionaire? What defines a millionaire according to Wikipedia?
According to Wikipedia, they probably have a different definition than what it really is.
Well, just say what it is. No, again, that's
kidding.
Okay, okay. How about we edit that too and just say, okay, Kyle, what would you say the definition of a millionaire is?
Someone who has done what they needed to do to get to that point.
All right, we're going to get a little more defined. Okay, so a millionaire, according to Wikipedia, Bogey, is an individual whose net worth or wealth is equal or exceeds $1 million. Does that make sense?
Okay.
An individual whose net worth or wealth is equal to or exceeds $1 million.
Sure.
It's considered a
You're
millionaire.
a millionaire. Okay.
Fair enough?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I always say if you're not a millionaire, you definitely don't want to be a nillionaire. Okay? Do you know the definition of a nillionaire?
Having nothing.
One who has little to no money at all. Okay? So let's all strive to be millionaires and not nillionaires. Fair enough?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, that's all I've got for you today, Kyle.
Perfect. Well, that'll do it for episode 17. And again, guys, we appreciate you listening, subscribing, downloading, sharing. We appreciate your feedback as well. It's been a fun ride. 17 episodes in, and as Dewey likes to say, we're just getting started.
We're just getting started.
The opinions expressed in this program are for general information purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or any specific security. It's only intended to provide education about the financial industry. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results. Any indices referenced for comparison are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. As always, please remember investing involves risks and possible loss of principal capital. Please seek advice from a licensed professional.